What's going on? It's me here. So what we're going to be going ahead and doing is this is going to be a Dyno bot tutorial, just everything that may be needed. Now, Dyno is a multi-purpose bot for Discord. A lot of people use it for moderation. You know, a lot of things it can be used for. You know, if you've ever had trouble setting it up, I know I have in the past. This is going to be the perfect video for you. I'm going to show you step by step how to set it up, you know, my recommendations for the bot and just in general, you know, how to do it. So I'll leave the link for this bot in the description if obviously you don't know. Dyno.gg, simple. To start off with, you just click on add to server. It should prompt you with a authorization page in which obviously you'll accept it, and then you just go ahead and click the server in which you want to go ahead and add it to. Now, I've made a new server to go ahead and mess around with. Generally, it will ask you obviously for admin and all these other terms. I recommend you just giving it admin because it's generally going to be the highest role in the server anyway, so it can actually help and moderate properly. And once you've added it, it should take you to the main page, and you can check in this whichever server you're in that it's in, and it will have its admin role. Now, the dashboard is pretty intuitive. There is a lot of different settings, and it can be a little bit confusing if you don't know what you're doing exactly. Simple things here, you can change the nickname, the prefix. Now, the prefix is what you're going to use to initiate any command within Dyno. So by default, it is a question mark. Some bots use the exclamation mark, so the symbol here. However, I recommend simple, keeping it with the question mark. Again, if you have a certain preference or something that you want to specifically use because you're used to it, go ahead, pop that in here, press update, and it will change. This here on the right hand side, recent activity, any change you make within here, it will all pop up here as a log. Maybe you want to check out what your admins are doing, maybe they're changing some stuff that you don't want them to. It will all appear here and you'll see it. When we go ahead and change some stuff later on, you'll see here and I'll show it. Now, to start off with, just to show you, I've made a member role, a mod role, and an admin role. Just for simplicity and showing you everything. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go to modules first. Modules is like the different kind of forte sections within Dyno in which you can do. You don't need to disable or enable these as per. You can just do that via the command section, which I'll show you in a second again. Now, AFK is just an AFK status. If you get pinged, it will say, hey, this uses AFK. It's up to you whether you want that on. Action log is literally just a log of actions, a log of anything that happens within Dyno. So you can choose a channel for that. You can specify specific channels for each different action to be logged. Again, avatar, account. Now, in each module you click on, make sure that you enable the module, because if you set everything up and you don't enable it, the module's not going to work. It's just the way Dyno works. Obviously, below the channel here, you've got each event, which you can manually specify what you want to be logged. Maybe you want member join to be logged, but if somebody leaves, you don't want it to be logged. You can specify it here. It's completely up to your own specifications of what you want for your Discord server. Now, if you want certain channels to be ignored or roles to be ignored from logging, and what that means is that if someone's typing in a specific channel and you don't want it to be logged because it's a private channel or whatnot, you can select that here. You can hide it. If there's a specific role someone has and you're like, okay, I trust them, I don't care what they do, I don't want to log them, again, you'd select that here. Say we want admin role. Okay, I don't want admins to be logged, I trust them. You just select it here. Channels, self-explanatory. Choose the channel, it won't log it. Simple as. Now, I'm going to go to commands because modules is kind of self-explanatory. For the most part, you just press settings on whichever module it is, and you'll be able to set up, you know, the module again. Make sure it's enabled, and you'll be able to, you know, change whichever you want. Now, these join messages, leave messages, and ban messages are the message the user will actually get once you perform whichever action it is. I'm just going to dive into commands because modules is pretty It's pretty simple. As long as you know somewhat what you're doing, it should be fine. Now, my personal recommendations for the commands here is these role ones aren't really too necessary. So if you really want to, you could just disable them all, and then they won't be needed. And in each section here, you can, if you want, set up the permissions for each command section. I'll go into a little bit of detail. Allowed channels and disabled channels, meaning if you select any allowed channels, the command will be enabled in that channel. If you disable some channels, the commands won't work in the channels that you specify. Same thing goes for allowed and disabled roles. If you specify an allowed role, that role will be allowed to use the command. If you specify disabled roles, they won't be able to use the command. Hopefully it's simple enough for you there. Now, in this manager command here, you're generally going to want to either leave it blank or set it to admin for allowed roles. This is what I personally will recommend. Obviously, very specific ones you could change. I would say set Nick, you want to have that to your overall staff role. You could put it here. Now, for the most part, for the moderation commands, if you leave them blank, meaning you don't allow or deny anything, then they'll be allowed everywhere, but only by people who have admin. Now, when I say admin, I'm talking about the actual administrator permission here. Now, this permission will enable every single permission for this role, and it will bypass any channel specific permissions, meaning they will always be able to view, delete, etc. Certain channels. So if people have the administrator permission, they will be able to use all of the commands. If they're enabled, they'll be able to use them all, regardless of whatever your set permissions are. Just the way it is. Now, for these commands here, I don't normally use any of these here. Setnik, I normally leave on for the entire staff team, just because it's easier for moderation. You know, if they need to do it, they can do it via the bot rather than doing it manually. Stuff like clear warn, it's not too needed. You can enable it if you need to. Obviously, that goes as same. Now, this command here is one of the only commands in this section that I personally use, Purge Command. So the Purge Command is if there's a wall of text or very specific commands that you need, very specific text that you need to delete, this command comes in handy. Again, you'd set it up via your channels or whichever you want it to be allowed or disabled in. I recommend allowing this to your entire staff team. That's just the way I normally rock it. Lowest to highest, all of them will have access to this. Now, if you don't want the sub commands within Purge to be available, you can disable these here. So the normal Purge command would just allow you to purge messages. However, if you do something like Purge user, then you can purge commands for a specific user instead of all of the messages. Again, if you don't want any of these commands to be enabled, just disable them. I personally leave them all enabled. That's just the way I rock with it. For the moderator commands, I don't usually use most of these. The only ones I really do use is kick. Kick I generally use to I generally allow, a trainee moderator. So your second to lowest staff rank to use this generally. Same for mute. Mute, again, if you don't want people to use it, make sure you set that up here. And if you need any help on a specific thing, you can just press help, and it will generally show you the information in which and how to use it. For ban, I generally go to moderator. So the general specific of roles that I go ahead in the service that I manage and set up is helper, trainee, moderator, and then head mod, and then admin, depending on the situation, of course. Ban, I would generally go with moderator and above, because trainee moderators generally need a bit more moderation experience before I personally give them access to it. So these three commands here, ignored, clean, diagnose, I leave alone. The undeafened and deafened ones I leave alone too. Moderations is a nice one. I personally make it moderator only. This will show any current moderation actions that users are facing. So any current mutes, it will show you. Any current timed bans, it will show you here. Stuff like role persist, I leave off. Unmute. Soft ban can be useful. This basically bans a user and unbans them just to delete their messages. Now, lock and unlock, you're going to want to be careful with. You could give them to mods, I personally do, but if you don't trust your mods or you think your mods are not too advanced with bots or Discord, then I wouldn't give this to them just in case they trigger it by accident. What this does is it locks it locks the specific channel which they specify so that nobody can type in it. So if there's a raid or there's a lot of people spamming, this can be useful for that. Mod logs, I generally let the entire staff team use. Warn, entire staff team. Reason, generally I go for moderators and above. Unban, moderators and above, because only moderators and above can ban, so you might as well let them unban. It'd be stupid to let a lower staff rank use the unban command because obviously they can't ban. Notes, it's not really to use in servers, but it can just add a note without actually adding a moderation action to a user, which I think is personally pretty useful. Case will show you specific moderation cases against users. Pretty useful in my opinion. Now the other important ones here I would go for is mod stats, duration and lockdown. Mod stats will show the amount of moderation actions taken by staff members. So it's kind of I generally would leave it to a higher staff / an admin only for this one, just because staff sometimes use it to compete with each other, and that's obviously not a good thing. Duration, I will go with whichever role you've set to mute, that role and above to go for duration, because obviously whichever role you've set to mute, they can mute anyway, so it is good for them to be able to change the duration of a mute. Obviously if they can't, then they need to wait for someone else, and that can be a bit finicky, especially in larger servers. Now the lockdown command is very similar to the lock command. The lockdown command locks every single channel that you've set. So every channel you've set, it will lock it so that nobody can type in it, minus admins, because obviously they have all the permissions. This is used again in a raid, in a certain scenario where you need to lock down to affect some sort of change. Be very careful to leave this sub command on, because if you don't, you will not be able to end the lockdown. And obviously you want to be able to do that whenever you can. I very highly recommend that you read the info here to be able to know how to use that command properly. Now, the other commands here, kind of personal preference. I personally disable the fun commands because in the servers I'm in, people don't usually use them, but they are just little fun ones that you can mess around with. Pokemon, info on Pokemons, RPG, rock, paper, scissors. They're kind of just mess around commands people can fuck about with. If you want them on, leave them on. Again, you can set them up if you want specific people to be able to use them. If you don't really care, leave them off and everyone will have access to them. The miscellaneous commands are very specific to you and your server. Like the AFK command, for example, we generally allow server boosters and staff to use just as an incentive for people to actually boost. It helps. Who is an avatar, we generally leave to staff, just because otherwise you generally get a lot of users trying to get bigger avatars and information on users when it's not really necessary for everyone to have patience to do that. Everything else is generally I leave off. Just avatar who is an AFK. You could leave, oh sorry, yeah, we leave member count on, just so you can see how the server's doing. Of course, if you want the other commands actually on, then that's cool. I'm going to change one of these just so there's some logs that I can show you later about why I told you earlier. Now, I'm going to go to tags. I generally leave these off. They're not really needed. They're kind of useless, but if you need to use them, they're there. Again, shows the tags. And this one fetches tags for you. Now, info here. Again, not really needed, but they're nice commands if you need to use them. Premium just gives you premium information. Bot info, ping is generally used quite a lot. Now, Dyno can, recently it's been having a lot more downtime and been a bit slow, so the ping command is useful to know if Dyno is being a bit slow. Obviously, if it is being a bit slow, you should know. Uptime is just the last time it was updated. Now for module, I'm going back here just because auto mod is one that a lot of people are probably going to want to use. Now auto mod is what it is. It's an auto moderator. So this here will enable an auto mute, which you can set here. Disable default banned words. There is a few default banned words which Dyno have set up yourself. You can enter a word list here if you have one, or you can link a blacklist if you have one here. That will automatically add words in which are on your blacklist. Now, match any part of the word here will be, if you write, say, NIG, if any word, any random word has got that sentence of that string of letters in it, then it will be auto-modded. If you set it to match exact word only, then it will only be deleted if it's exactly as this, or exactly as, say, fuck. Whereas if you put, say, F1CK, for example, it won't be auto-modded because it's not the exact term. So I generally add them to both exact and wildcard. Generally, if you need to whitelist, say, a link, you can add that here. If you need to whitelist a word, you can add that here. For the general auto modding stuff, that's set here. If you need a log chapter set, obviously set that here. Make sure you enable the module again. So you've got different filter options here. You've got ban words, caps, duplicate text, links, invites, spam mentions, spoilers, self-bot, image time. Now, if you need any specific information on what they are, press the little help thing here and it'll pop up with an embed to show you. If you need something to be enabled or disabled, so say you've got delete one, delete one, delete one, for example, but you say, okay, I want ban words to not be auto-modded in general, for example, or you want admins have ban, or you want moderators to not be affected by it, you would choose that for whichever specific option you need to do. Again, as I showed you earlier, ignore channels and allowed roles will be here. So if you need a specific channel which is not auto-modded at all, you put that here. If you want it for a specific thing that's not auto-modded, say you want to allow caps, then you'd set it in the individual caps permissions here. Again, for roles, if you want the role entirely to not be auto-modded, that would be here. If you need the role to be not auto-modded for a specific, that would go here. So if you go to logs here, that will show you all of the changes, set, what was happened. Warnings here will show the entire list of warnings. Obviously no data found because I just made this server, I just added the bot to show you here, but there's nothing. So we're going to go back to the dashboard, and this is the simpler log which I was telling you earlier. So in terms of the server itself, we haven't actually done much because obviously it hasn't done anything. Once you start adding your roles, once you start adding your permissions within Dyno, your channels, it will all pop up here and make sure you set it up accordingly. Now in the core basics of Dyno, that is really it. I can make a more in-depth actual channel, actual setup guide if need be. That can come at a later time. But for the simplicity of Dyno and for this video, that's about it. That's all Dyno really has. In terms of moderation, there are a lot of other things. As you see, music bots, you can do custom commands, stuff like that. I'm not going to go over that here because this was more so for the moderation of Dyno. Anyway, if you guys have enjoyed the video, make sure you guys drop the video a like rating and make sure you guys subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out any new videos. I do hope to be continuously posting on this channel now. I want to, see where it goes and just help you guys with any Discord bot type of related videos that I can. Anyway, I think that's me. I'll catch you guys in the next video and I'll see you later. Peace out.